Welcome to the First Year Pros podcast. My name is Zach Casey, and our guest today is Matthew Marquardt, an outstanding athlete with some already amazing accomplishments. So let's go ahead and jump into his story. I'm gonna go ahead and let you introduce yourself, how long you've been in triathlon, and your recent debut.
Sounds good. So my name is Matthew Marquardt. I'm a first year professional triathlete. I'm also a second, I guess now third year medical student at Ohio State University. So I very much balance being a medical student as well as doing triathlon. And I got into this sport just over 2 years ago. So I haven't really been in it very long. Last year was my first real full season, is what I kind of describe it as. And yeah, so I mean, previously I went to Princeton University where I was a varsity swimmer. I studied chemistry there, and then took a very unexpected turn into the world of triathlon when the COVID-19 pandemic canceled my senior swim season. And so I was looking for something else to do. Decided to sign up for a 70.3 race with really truly no intention of doing more than one race. I borrowed someone else's bike. I didn't even have an aero helmet. Someone loaned me a wetsuit. And from that race, I went 4:05 at Florida Gulf Coast, and that was a fourth place finish and qualified me for age group world championships. And so I was like,
That was
well,
your that was your first race. You went 4:05.
yeah.
What in the world? Okay, we got some stuff to break down then. Holy cow. Okay.
And yeah, so there was that, and that whole summer was basically a combination of me telling my coach I'm only doing world champs and then I'm going to be done, and then him telling me, no, you should really consider doing this more. And so
Holy cow, dude. That's quite a way to start the sport.
yeah, yeah, it was and so yeah, so but honestly it really wasn't until like Texas last year when I went 8:23 in my full distance debut as an age grouper that I kind of started to see, okay, maybe there's something here.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty solid, but seriously going 4:05 in your first 70 point. That was your first one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, we definitely got some stuff to break in. I knew that you had some impressive times. I didn't realize that you were that impressive. Definitely want to get into some of the med school stuff as well, give you that platform. But I want to jump into your pro debut here. You just had your first official pro race, which was IM Texas, right?
Correct. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah. Do you want to give us like a kind of breakdown of how that went for you, how it was, actually competing as a pro, and how that compared to, competing as an age group athlete for you?
Yeah, so Ironman Texas was a ton of fun. As I mentioned before, I did the course year prior as an age grouper, and so it was, I don't know, kind of full circle, I guess, for Ironman Texas to be my first full distance Ironman as a age grouper as well as a pro. And so that meant that I came into the race knowing the course, having done it before, which definitely gave a lot of comfort and security in many ways. And I think there was but there was also a lot of uncertainty, which I think kind of just made it fun. I really truly came in with like no expectations. I mean, the hope was to qualify for Nice. That was kind of as far as I let my mind wander. I think it's good to have goals, and have high lofting goals, but I also think it's important not to put too much pressure on yourself. And so I really try and keep my goals to be most of them to be simpler and definitely attainable. And kind of the consequences of those goals, I think, is what leads to a good race. So what I mean by that is we break it down, and it's like, okay, my, the goals were first pack on the swim, and then be first pack on the bike, and, like out of the swim, and just kind of ride within your wattage, and kind of hang with that group as much as you can. And then you might drop, you might be able to push near the end of the bike, but really the key was not to overdo it. And then on the marathon, at the end, it was just, the goals were be patient and execute a good run. And wasn't expecting to negative split it, but you want
Well,
to
that's
try and
impressive.
kind of you want to kind of be close to that. And really it's all those kind of smaller goals that are more execution based goals that
Hmm.
lead to a good race. And so going in, that was kind of my mindset of like little expectations, and also to an extent nothing to lose. I think one of the things that I saw that was interesting in my first pro meeting is just how serious everyone was. Which
Hmm.
I get, like these are people's jobs, like this is like their career.
Right.
And everything. But at the end of the day, it's like a race. We're racing and it's sport and it's for fun. And so I came out of that meeting like very much being like, and I'm a very intense person myself. So I don't want to say that I'm like this happy-go-lucky person all the time, but I came out of that meeting being like, wow, if I felt like that was intense, like I don't want, that's saying something. And so I really kind of took that and was like, my goal for this race is to have fun,
Yeah.
as much as I can. And also like I am in a very, very fortunate spot where I truly feel like in this sport I have nothing to lose.
Hmm.
As I've told some other people, if I do really well, I'm going to become a doctor, and if I do really poorly, I'm going to become a doctor. And so like,
Right.
there's no like triathlon end game here.
Yeah.
It's just I'm doing this for fun, and I'm doing it for a cause that I care about. And like anything that I can do in this sport in the time that I have is a bonus to me.
Right.
And so yeah, so take it back. So that like really helped, I think, with nerves, overall, especially leading into the swim. And so we started the swim and got on the first group and just kind of found my groove, and sat with them, and then got out onto the bike and did the same thing, was with them and working together and everything. And then at the special needs, that's when they dropped me because
Okay.
they I had to stop to get my fuel.
So
And
to a quick question here. So,
yeah,
you said that you're coming from a more of a competitive swimming background. So, where were you coming out of the water? And then how was that transition for you? You said that you were, wanting to stick with the first pack coming out of the water and then to sort of hold on to them in that first bike leg. And, clearly for Ironman, for half Ironman races, there's no drafting. So when you're hanging on with them, at least from my perspective, that's still more of a mental hanging on, keeping just the distance that you have to hold on. So I definitely want to jump into the run leg and everything, but while we're on those first two legs, I'd love to hear some more about like, those specific parts of, your approach in the swim, and then that transition to the bike, and how you kept up with them there.
right. Yeah, no, so it's very, very different than being an age grouper. It actually made for a much more enjoyable race overall.
Okay.
Even at Ironman Texas last year when I was an age grouper, I basically soloed
Yeah.
the whole race after 5 minutes in. Like I was with someone for the first 5 minutes of the swim last year, and then I was on my own. And so that makes it a lot more difficult mentally, kind of as you're pushing and whatnot to just keep going at the pace. It's a very, very long day. And so having people to swim with and having people to bike with made it a lot more interesting and a lot more, I guess, fun.
Yeah, it's
And
definitely better when you're like, well, when you have people to compete against. I've definitely been in, that's more the case for me in like local races where it's like
yeah,
after the first few minutes, every now and then I might see some people, but a lot of it is solo racing. So I can imagine that just having that mental aspect of, you know, there's someone to catch or there's someone trying to catch me, could definitely a important part in it.
right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that was, just, I guess, kind of like an interesting thing about being a pro. And then obviously on the bike course, it's a lot nicer when you're out there and you're all alone.
Right.
You're not passing age groupers, although you get that on the second lap.
Second
So you
loop.
always
Yeah.
have to be careful there. But yeah, no, it was like really good. And yeah, at special needs, I had to stop, because like one of the things is I'm very fortunate in that I can eat a lot, and so I do eat a lot, and so I need that nutrition that comes after special needs. And so at that point, like they went on, and got
Yeah.
me. It's like, okay, I'll just do my own race. And then that's pretty much how it was like until the last 8 miles of the run, where I was just like, I'm just doing my own thing. And then the last 8 miles or so was like, okay, I think there's the possibility to do something special here.
Yeah. And then how did you place overall in that one, in that race?
In Ironman, so I'm talking about pro now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was third. I
Third
was
pro.
third place among pros. Yep. And
Wow. That's for a pro debut. That's pretty freaking good, dude. You're coming in strong.
yeah, and I was 21 seconds back from first place.
Wow. That's incredible, man. After like only 2 years of being in the sport, I definitely want to, we'll take a few minutes here, but I definitely want to get back into your background and just hear how you're doing all this, because that's pretty freaking incredible right there. Um, but yeah, so okay, so you basically just you did your race. How'd you feel about the hippie hollow?
Oh, I mean, Hippie Hall is great. Like, honestly, I think Ironman Texas is my favorite run course out there. Because it's a multi-loop course, which makes it great for spectators.
Yep.
And literally, the whole course is lined with people, and so you're never
Yeah.
out there on alone. Like, Kona. So I raced Kona last year as an age grouper, and like, Kona's great because it's historic and it really pushes you to your limits, but it's an out and back, and so there's not as many people there, and there's not that energy except for maybe the first 5 miles and the last mile. Whereas Texas, you have people cheering
Yeah.
you on, giving you updates the whole time, and so it just makes it like a lot more enjoyable.
Right. Yeah, I did Texas in I think it was 2021. It was my second full Ironman, and unfortunately was one of the worst race experiences I have had in my entire life. um, I had a mishap on the bike where I lost my nutrition and like didn't have anything, almost anything for like the last like 30, 40 miles. Still ended up doing like closer to like 5 hours, which was my goal on the bike, which was pretty
Yep.
good for where I was at. And then the run, within the first mile, my legs started cramping. Like I ended up having to walk so much of the run, but it gave me a huge perspective because, like you said, like it's one of the few courses that you really have spectators almost the entire time. You've got that hippie hollow, which is just like some fun shenanigans through there. Definitely gave me a different perspective on that course, and I would agree. I would agree that it's probably one of the best run courses. I wasn't a huge fan of the swim because of how nasty the water was,
Oh
and
yeah.
like swimming through the lily pads and all that stuff. Like that was, it was the canal aspect is kind of cool, but like the water was pretty gross.
Yeah.
Um, and then so like how did you feel about like each of the individual legs? So we know that the run course you loved, but like how did you feel about the actual individual legs of the races?
Yeah, I mean, overall, I was very happy with everything.
Okay.
The swim was like really there was nothing that I would change on the swim. I think the only thing on the bike is that I know that I could have hung with them had
Mm-hmm.
I not needed to get my nutrition. And so there's just some questions about like, okay, what do we do differently there? Like
Yeah.
there's no question I needed to stop, and I think that's what enabled me to have such a good run.
Right.
But I think there's questions there about like, okay, how can you stay in the pack dynamics for more? Because like power wise, it was not a push, and then the run was pretty much perfect. I think if I were to do anything differently,
Awesome.
I should have started pushing about 2 miles before I did,
Okay.
because I ended up coming up on Rudy, who was in second at that point, with about a mile and a half to go. And I think it would have just been a very different race if I'd caught them with like 3 to 4 miles to go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but you can't be perfect.
Right.
So
Right.
things to work on, and yeah, no, overall, I was just super happy with the race.
So and I'm not sure about this on the pro field. Do many of the pros stop for the special needs station, or did you just know that you were going to need extra nutrition in that area? Because when it comes down to the pros competing, especially if you're in that top group, like you said, you were behind first by 21 seconds. I mean, every second counts at that point. So do you think that like do the other pros stop there, or did you just know that you needed to?
Um, I honestly have no idea
No
what
idea.
people. I honestly have no idea what people normally do. I was the only one of the four of us that were together that stopped.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, but I'm taking on like 2,500 calories during the bike, which is a lot. Like, cause
Yeah.
like it's like yeah, I take on almost 600 carbs, 600 grams of carbs on the bike, and you just can't get that from aid stations alone.
Yep.
And also, we were blowing through the aid stations anyways.
Oh yeah,
But
no, you don't stop for the aid stations very
no,
rarely.
so that was something very different. Thankfully, it wasn't too hot, but in the past, I would always use the aid station to get water to cool myself off, and that just wasn't happening in this race. But
Right.
we also didn't really need it. It wasn't too hot out, so it was okay.
Okay, well, that's good. Is there anything about your pro debut race that you want to share otherwise? If not, then we can kind of go into your qualifying races and some more of your background as well.
I don't think so. I mean, I was just super happy with it. I think it was a great race all around from everyone, and like I'm just very excited to see where the rest of the season goes.
Yeah, I mean, dude, 2 years in, pro debut coming out. You said third. Did you say third or?
Yep.
Yeah,
Third.
third. I mean, that's a pretty impressive start, man. So, I want to get into your qualifying race, but first, let's go into your background because I'm just like dying to hear this now. Like, how the heck you're starting so strong? So you said you were a competitive swimmer. Did you have run background, bike background at all, or?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the simplest way to explain it is that I have a multi-sport background in a
Okay.
different sense of the word, where I grew up playing almost every single sport there was.
Okay.
So in high school, I varsity lettered in 13 different sports, like 13 different seasons, so across 5 sports.
Okay.
So that was lacrosse, soccer, swimming, cross country, and track.
Damn.
In my senior year of high school, I qualified for Ohio high school states in cross country, swimming, and track.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
like I and then biking, like I was on a bike from a very young age, like never racing, but I would just do it with my family, like on weekends and
Yeah.
whatnot. So I think I came to triathlon with pretty good bike handling skills.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I did a bunch of sports in high school, and then it was apparent that swimming was where you know, not the money was because I didn't get scholarship, but swimming was where the future was, and so I went to Princeton University where I swam, and I say there was no money because they don't give you scholarships, they don't even have them. Um,
Hmm.
but you know, being able to go to Princeton is more than worth it.
Right. Right.
And so 2016 I qualified for the US Olympic trials in the 200 backstroke, and then
Wow.
went to college and swam at Princeton for my 4 years there, and I would like run as well, kind of just on the side, and then my senior year, which was 2020/2021, our swim season was canceled because of COVID,
Yep.
and since the pools were closed because of COVID, I started to bike again. It was really the first time in like 4 years I'd been able to bike, and when the swim season was canceled, I was like, I've never had a month off where I can do whatever I want because, like, you would take like 2 weeks for vacation. Swimming's a full
Sure.
year sport, and so I was like, I finally have a full week where I can do literally whatever I want. There's no like swimming's done, like there's no training there, and so I decided in January 2021 to bike across the country as my fun thing to do. And so
Cool.
I biked from San Diego to Jacksonville, Florida in 20 days, which included one rest day. I averaged like 130 miles a day
Oh my God.
at like 20 miles per hour average speed.
How
And
much had you biked before that?
so before that, I had never done a 100-mile ride before. Like
So like what was the longest ride you had done? Or how
well,
consistently would you bike?
I mean, I was probably doing that fall. I was probably doing 100 miles a week at most.
Dude, you got something going on. Are you human? Like
I don't know. We'll figure that out when I die one day and donate my body to research.
you're just like leaving me just like jaw dropped right now. Like, holy shit, my dude. That's incredible. Also, just a quick question. So you said that like back in high school, you did swimming, diving, or I don't not diving, sorry. Swimming, track, cross country, all of those sports. Did you do those like year round, or did you do those like just through school?
So swimming was year round.
Okay. Okay. So you were a year round swimmer. So
Yeah.
there's at least some additional background there. Okay, we got that. We got that under control.
Yeah, swimming was year round, and then everything else was just through school. Like I did soccer and swimming year round until high school, and then in high school I decided just to do swimming year round.
Okay, so you dropped down that to swimming year round. Cool, gotcha. Okay, cool. Back to biking across the country on just a whim, basically from a 100 miles a week to 130 miles a day. Cool. Continue.
Yeah. So I mean, that was like an incredible experience. My dad and I did that. He kind of sagged me and I did the riding. Super good experience. And then like, I finished January of my senior year and I was like, well, I need something else to do. I don't want to just sit around for a couple months until I graduate.
Hmm.
And so that's when I decided to sign up for Gulf Coast. Gulf Coast 70.3, which was the first
Hmm.
race that I did. And then from there, it was like, I was originally like, I'm just going to do this so I have something to train for, something to stay in shape for graduation. And then like 2 weeks, so because I was going to do a one and done, just started training myself originally. And then like
Hmm.
2 weeks in, I'd basically like get on the bike, get on the trainer, and like go all out for like an hour and a half, or like I'd go on a run and I'd do 6 miles and like go all out. And then after
Hmm.
like 2 weeks, I was like, I don't think this is like particularly effective.
No, no, it's not.
um, and
It's good at getting you injured. I can tell you that much
yeah.
from experience.
So that's when I got a coach, who like I got connected with through actually one of my swimming teammates. And I've been working with him ever since, and he's a big reason why I've been as successful as I have been. I actually attribute a significant amount of my success to him. And he's also why I'm still in the sport, because I probably would have quit after like that second race if it
Hmm.
wasn't for him egging me on.
Why? So why is that? Did you just not enjoy it that much, or did you just have other priorities? I mean,
Um,
clearly med school is like something that's your main focus here. So
yeah, so it was a combination of two things. It was like, um, I had like a very, in some ways, it's not quite the best description of it, but I had somewhat of a love-hate relationship with swimming, in college. And so when like I graduated from college, I was at peace with being
mhm.
done like with elite athletics. Um, like I was very comfortable being like, okay, this like I'm done being an athlete. Um, and so there was like that component of it. But I think more so is just that like no one's done this before. There's no one. I mean, most people like med school is hard enough.
Yeah,
And so the concept of doing med school and training about 20 hours a week on average for triathlon is like, like very, very unheard of. And so there was that component of it. And then there was also like an initial fear that um, doing triathlon in medical school would be seen as like negligent or irresponsible.
hmm,
And that really what I should be doing is spending that time studying or doing research. And so it was really that latter point that I was the most concerned about. And so after I got second in my age group at 70.3 worlds in 2021, it was like big decision time. It was like, okay, well, there's the potential for me to be good at this. Um, in which case I need to devote like at that point I'm like 6 weeks into med school. So it's like not that bad
yeah,
yet. And it was definitely very doable. So I was like, okay, like I think this is doable. But I was like, but will it be valued? Because it's, yes, you should do things that you're passionate about, like,
hmm,
but at the same time, the amount of time I would have to put into this sport, I wanted to make sure that there would be like, some professional benefit to me doing it as
yep,
well. And also more importantly, not like a negative thing, for any future kind of application or employment opportunities that came
Right.
my way. And
I mean,
so
you
I
seem like
talked,
you're balancing it pretty well.
yeah, and so I talked to like a bunch of physicians, and thankfully literally all of them were like, you 100% should go for this, because the interesting thing, maybe this is digressing too much, but
Mm,
everyone in medicine is trying to find the secret metric to determine who's going to be a successful resident and who's going to be a successful physician. Is it grades? Is it test scores? Is it the amount of research that you're doing? Like, everyone's trying to figure out like what's the thing that's going to be most predictive of success
sure.
down the line. And what I was told is that the only thing that's ever been proven to be correlated with success in the future is like previous experience being elite in some other aspect of life. So
Okay.
that's either being an elite athlete or being an elite musician, like a world, maybe not a very good writer, like something where you're top of the game in that thing. And the reason is because if you know how to be a top, cellist or a top triathlete or a top writer, you know what it takes to become the best, and then you'll transfer that to medicine. And so
Sure.
everyone's like, dude, 100% you should do this. This is like super awesome.
Well, you're freaking taking it in stride. I can tell you that much. Like, you want to stand out, dude, you are paving your path right now. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. So then I was like, okay, like I'm gonna give this a shot. And last year was our trial run, which what was the true trial run, and it was kind
Well,
of like,
trial,
okay,
swim, bike, and run,
yes,
and
exactly.
med school, and
And so last year we basically proved that, like, okay, there's, I have potential and I can do this in med school. And so then we're like, okay, like let's do another, let's just keep going. And so that takes us to this year.
dude, I mean, that really is freaking awesome that you're able to do all that balance. And I'm actually gonna let that be a segue into how do you balance it? Like how you I think you mentioned that you do about 20 hours of training a week. So how do you find the time to do that in addition to med school? And how does that sort of break down by sport if you want to share it?
Yeah. So the easiest answer is breakdown by sport. I don't really know.
Okay, fair enough.
It's one of those things where I would not be able to do what I do without my coach.
Gotcha.
It's so like I have so little extra time and bandwidth
Yep.
in my life that like the thought of creating my own training plan is just way overwhelming. And
Yep.
so I very much like literally I tell him, like, we sit down and I like say, okay, here's my schedule for the next X number of days. I can give you 1 hour here, 3 hours on this day. We can do a big session on this day, or like this day, like, we need to only do an hour.
Yep.
And he takes that and he creates the plan, and then I just do the workouts.
Okay, gotcha.
And so that's been the relationship, and it's been super, super effective.
Clearly.
Clearly. And so yeah, so I give him tons of credit because I'm not easy. I'm not an
Right.
easy athlete to train in the regard that, like, it's not the same thing every week. Every single day is different in terms of what I can and can't do from a
Sure.
timing perspective. So so there's that. And then in terms of balance, like that's the question that I've been getting just all the time. And I
I'm
think
sure it is.
I think that um I think that, for me, as I mentioned, like I've been doing lots of different sports throughout my whole life. At Princeton, I was a chemistry major, which is like one of the hardest majors that is there. And I was also a varsity swimmer. And so really just kind of like throughout my whole life, I've kind of, I guess, trained to balance a high level of athletics as well as a high level of academic success. And
Mhm.
I think that's really um what's enabled me to do this, because um like there definitely have been times where I think med school has been harder than college, but I also think based on my experiences in college, like it's been fairly similar in some
Okay.
regards. Just because like I took super hard classes in college and whatnot. So it's just
Sure.
been like, over many, many years I've developed the strategies and whatnot that enable me to be super effective in studying and have good time management and all of that. So it's not a sexy answer at all, but it's really just been like
Doesn't have to be.
over time learning how to, just be really, really efficient with studying and also everything else you do. Like I think one of the things as well, that I'm not on social media a lot, but what
Mhm.
I do see among the other pros is that everyone's always posting pictures of they're in this exotic location, or they, have like this great picture of them out on the road. I do 95% of my training on the bike trainer.
Yeah.
Um, Not necessarily because I always love it, but like
It
that's just,
it's tough. I struggle in the like in the winters when I have to do all my training on the bike. Like, man, sometimes it can just be hard to like mentally get in that space sometimes.
yeah, yeah. Like it's um it's just way more efficient. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
doing 5 hours on the bikes on the trainer sucks, but like you have all your nutrition right there, the
yep.
bathroom's right there, like you don't have to worry about layering or anything like that. And so
Cars.
you don't have to worry about cars, you don't have to worry about potholes, like it's a
Yeah,
lot safer, it's a lot more efficient with your training. And so, I definitely would love to be able to get out on the road more often, but it just doesn't make sense.
right.
So
And you can, I mean, if you do only have that very specific amount of time, you're talking about efficiency. Every workout can be done, not necessarily to par, but like you're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days, but
right.
like every workout can be structured. Whereas when you go out on the road, you have cars to deal with, you have traffic lights, you've got potholes, you've got hills. Depending on where you live, if you have structured workouts, some of them you just can't really do to par out on the road. So even if you could do them close, I can imagine that when your time is very strict and very limited, doing something to par is going to be even more beneficial for you. So next question is, what do you do to pass the time on the bike? I've done Netflix, I've done YouTube videos trying, or I've done like other studies or something like that while I'm on the trainer, but that I've run out of things to do every now and then. So like, what do you do while you're on the trainer?
I'm gonna sound like a sociopath. I pretty much do nothing for the most part. I mean,
Yep, you're a sociopath. This everything makes sense now. Everything makes sense now. I understand how you've gotten this good this fast. You're just a sociopath. Cool, we got it. All right. If anyone has questions, we have the answer right here.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, I'll if it's like an easier ride, like a long, easy ride, I'll send emails and I'll text, and that's about as much as I do. I can't really watch Netflix. I actually find that it makes the time go slower.
Hmm.
Um, and I can't watch lectures because I find that I don't absorb any of the
Yep.
information.
Yeah.
So I pretty much just listen to music and kind of try and get into like a flow state where the time just like passes. And
Yeah.
it definitely, you know, as you get into training, I found that like, a 5 hour workout becomes not that bad, as crazy as it sounds. But like once you're getting back into training, the first long workout or two is really rough, but then
Yep.
it's fine after that. So
Yeah, I think that's actually great, and that's kind of what I've moved to. Over the winters, like I've watched Netflix before, but sometimes it just my brain will get tired of consuming that much. Like
right.
if you're doing a 3-4 hour ride, like your brain just hurts after doing that much. So I usually, I'll put music on or have a playlist up or something like that, and just get, like you said, try to like find the flow state where you just put your head down and just kind of like grind it out for whatever time or interval workout that you have. Um, cool. Well, then I want to transition over. If you have anything else, do you have anything else about your background? Anything else that you'd like to share on that topic there?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool. Then I would love to talk about the how you qualified for your pro card. I mean, clearly you've been in the sport for 2 years. I'm pretty sure every race you've done, you've been able to qualify essentially. So, which race did you take it at, and then why at that race particularly?
Yeah, good question. So, um, as you said, yes, I'm pretty sure every single race I qualified
Yeah.
in, except for maybe I didn't qualify in my first race because there was no pro division.
Oh, okay.
And
So yeah, that
so,
one technically you wouldn't have been able
yeah,
to, but
but every
time wise you would have.
yeah,
But I guess yeah, if there wasn't actually a pro field there, then you wouldn't have been able to get it there.
exactly. So it didn't qualify there. I guess the first race that I qualified at was actually USA Triathlon Nationals in 2021.
Okay.
I won my age group and I was fourth overall. Um, And that was after a summer where I barely trained because I went on a mountain biking trip with my brother because we both graduated from the same year in college. And so we were like just having fun.
Yeah.
They
You
went
gotta
to
have a
this
little bit of fun with
triathlon, but
it.
it was a rough race, but you know, I still got top five. So that's technically the first time I qualified. And then so the
But you
following
didn't take it there, right?
I did not take it
Yep.
there. Because like it just didn't make sense. Like I wasn't, you know, it just didn't I didn't have enough experience and it didn't really make sense to take the pro card that early. Just kind of like my coach used to race, and so he kind of really guided me a lot in terms of like when would be a good time to take it. And so and a big part of it was we wanted to do Kona,
Yep.
and that was kind of the goal for last year was to go to Kona and win at least an age group title, if not an overall amateur title. And so that was really that was the guiding light for last year in terms of when to take a pro card or not. Like at Ironman Texas, I was 10th among the pros. If I had raced in the pro division, and then at
Mhm.
Eagleman, I would have been fourth among the pros. If I had raced there, Eagleman 70.3, I was 349. Um, and
Dude,
and
that's crazy.
then Lake Placid in July, I would have been fourth among the pros
70.3 or full?
full.
Okay, that was actually my first that was my first full.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that was actually probably before Ironman Texas. I think Ironman Lake Placid was my best race. Is
Beautiful freaking course.
yeah,
Absolutely beautiful. That swim too is just like if you get along the that line underwater, you don't have to
yep,
sight anything. You just freaking hammer out.
yeah,
I think
yep,
it was a double loop, I think,
yep,
right?
yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that course is absolutely beautiful. So yeah, continue with with how that went for you.
Yeah, so Lake Placid was super well, like went super well. I won the overall age group title by 50 minutes, by 50 minutes. And so that
50?
was yeah, 50.
I mean, based on where you're competing, that doesn't overly surprise me. I don't remember where I came in it, but Lake Placid is one that I think a lot of people try to avoid just because of the massive hills in it.
Yeah.
So I know there's not as much competition comes out there, and again, just based on the times that you're throwing down. Actually, what did you do in the swim? Because it is probably one of the fastest swims out there, I think, other
So
than like a downriver.
yeah, so I was just 50 minutes. It wasn't like
Okay,
a
about 50.
it wasn't a it was I was 50 flat. It wasn't a particularly good swim for me. I was actually faster at Kona. So the one
Okay.
interesting thing is that because I have a swimming background, I actually really don't love swimming in wetsuits. I would much rather swim
Mm.
skin. And so Kona I was 49, but Lake Placid, which was a wetsuit, I was 50.
Oh,
Uh,
that's actually really interesting. Well, let's jump back on that later on because I'd be curious to hear some of your opinions on it.
Yeah. So, but basically, like the rest of last season, I took my pro card. I did Kona, and then I did 70.3 Worlds, in St. George, which was 3 weeks after, which was
How'd that go for you?
that was a crazy month. I mean, it went fine. It was a frustrating race for me,
Okay.
because I got out of the swim. I had a bag mix up in T1,
Oh, damn.
cost me a couple minutes, and then I lost my chain on the bike, and I ended up losing the age group title by like 40 seconds,
Oh,
and I lost the overall title by like 3 minutes. And so it was just kind of it was I mean like you can't be upset with the result. Like I still podiumed and
yeah.
everything, but it definitely left me wanting more.
Right. When you have a mishap like that where you know that if it hadn't happened, it's like, I mean, 40 seconds is not a lot of time for
Right,
mishaps like that. So I'm
right.
sorry to hear that, man, but
Yeah.
yeah.
That's all right. Kona was really the focus, and that month was really crazy because I was away from med school more than I was at med school.
Oh,
So,
gosh.
so the month afterwards was particularly unenjoyable, um,
Hmm.
unpleasant, as I tried to catch back up on everything. But you know, everything got done and did well in classes, so it ended up being good in the end. And then then after that, there was just no question like I'm taking my pro card, and
Yeah.
I also like I wanted to be able to test myself against the best, and also I knew that there would be a lot of age groupers that would be very upset at me if I continued to race as an age
Yeah,
grouper.
there's a few that probably would. I mean, at the same time, like at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do what you got to do. You got to do your race. You got to do what's going to be best for you. But the level that you're racing at, I mean, there's absolutely no reason like
Right.
there's really no reason why you should be competing at the age group. Like if you want to push yourself at all, like the only way to do it is going to be competing against the pros. And by the sound of it, even that's not going to be that's not going to hold you back for much longer.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's when you knew that you were going to go ahead and you were going to take your pro card. Did anything, after that sort of click moment there where you took your pro card, did anything change as far as training, mindset or any of that before, leading up to this year and your first pro race?
No, I mean it was truly just like it was truly just like same thing. Like we had everything was very successful last year, and so just continue it this year, knowing that the dynamics and the strategies within a pro race would be slightly different since I'm racing
Mm-hmm.
against people, but in terms of training, like it was pretty much the same. Because why risk something new when you have something that's working so well?
Right. Well, yeah, that's what I was going to ask is because, a lot of people, myself included, like, I've been at the top of my age group. So I've been in it for about 4 or 5 years. I started right after my senior year of college. Found out that the 70.3 Worlds was going to be in South Africa. And I'm like, I want to go to Africa. I'm going to go do that race. And then after my first 2 years, I had like a really bad training. Like I was working towards my pro card after like the first year or so. I was like, I think I could do it. And then 2020, the best year for training, I had a really bad training injury at the beginning of the year that basically put me out. And so I've been like steadily trying to like climb back up to get back to that level now. But a lot of people they make sort of the more steady progression of like they're getting faster, and then it kind of hits a point now where it's like, okay, this training's been working, but if I want to go to the next level, I've got to do something different. But clearly for you, it's been, hey, from basically from day one, what you've been doing has been working, and so like you're already at that level. So that makes complete sense on that front that the training probably hasn't changed too much.
Yeah.
Um, Cool. Well, then, as far as like your upcoming season, what else do you have planned? Do you have, I know you said that for your first race, you didn't have a lot of expectations, which I think is pretty good. And it's really funny because like most of the pros I've talked to, or the first year pros that I've talked to that have come on here have been like, yeah, sorry, one second, I had something pop up. Every race before going pro was, these high expectations of, oh, I need to hit this time and I need to hit this place. And then once they get their pro card, they're like, yep, I threw everything out the window for the first race. And it's just like, I'm gonna go out there, race, do what I can and see how it works. But yeah, I'm curious, like for your upcoming races, if you have goal strategy, or any specific targets.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall it's just like at the end of the day, it is a race against other people, but I think for me for me as like a medical student, you kind of come in with the mindset of like you control what you can, like focus on what you can control, and then adapt to the best that you can to the things that you can't control. And so really like my focus for the rest of the season is like, executing training and executing racing in a productive and good, like executing it well, and
Mm-hmm.
then whatever place comes after that is like what's going to come.
Right.
So I kind of, and like times in this sport, you can't really focus on times because it's
Right. Every
depends so
race
much
is a
on the
little different.
conditions and like placing. I think you can say you want to win or whatever, but like also like you just never know. You could have a shit day and someone could have the best day of their life. So I think it's much better just to focus on like the more controllable outcomes. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's really like where I'm at. Like, just want to race the best that I can, and put in good training, and just see what comes.
Yeah. And yeah, I want to reiterate that point because that's another been just sort of common theme is the shift in mindset when it comes to training and racing and making it more about, performing your best and hitting your goals, hitting what you've been training to hit versus going for a place or going for a time because, things can vary on those. It's hitting the bike and trying to hit your power, going on the run and trying to hit your pace, not necessarily, overdoing it, underdoing it, but, going out and essentially doing what you trained for.
Right, exactly.
So what races do you have, coming up and for the rest of the season then?
Yeah, so next up I have Ironman Coeur d'Alene at the end of June, and then right now nothing until Nice. And because just I have a wedding the same weekend as Ironman Lake Placid, so I can't do that.
Your wedding or a different wedding?
No, not my
Okay.
wedding. It's a family member's
Okay,
wedding.
okay.
So it's not one that I can miss. And then I mean kind of the hope would be like, one of the dreams would be to get a US Open wildcard spot, which would be in August for the PTO US Open.
Okay.
And then Nice and then Ironman Florida. We'll probably wrap up the season.
Okay.
So
No adventure races, not gonna bike across the country or you maybe
nothing
swim
planned
around the
right now.
continent or something.
Nothing planned right now.
Okay. Yeah, how do you feel about the world champs being moved to Nice? There's been a lot of dispute about it in in the community and I'm kind of curious on your perspective of it because Kona was like the grand thing. Like that's why a lot of people did Ironman. Like that's for me personally, it's what pushed me to like really want to do Ironman.
Yeah.
That and because when I came back from my 70.3s, people would call me an Ironman. So I was like, no. Like I gotta do an Ironman just so I can stop correcting people. So other than that petty reason, like the goal for a lot of people is Kona. And now that it's an every year type thing and it just doesn't feel like it has that sort of grandeur about it. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two sides to it. At the end of the day, it's a world championship, and a world championship is made not necessarily particularly by the course, but by who races it.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I think there's that, and so in many ways, like I think Nice is still, it's no less deserving of a world championship title,
Right.
race as Kona is. However, I think Kona has just it has the history to it, and
Yeah.
it has the unique conditions. Even though Nice will bring its own challenges that are unique to its course, it's still
It's a
not
tough course.
the same.
Well,
Yeah.
it's an interesting course. If it's anything like the 70.3, I don't know if they have like a totally different one or if it's just a double loop or
No,
doubling what they
it's a
have.
single loop. But I think
Okay.
there's components that are same as 70.3.
Okay, yeah, because that one I did the 70.3 Worlds there a few years ago. And there was a massive climb and then a really technical, like a very technical downhill. So I wasn't sure if it was just that twice or if they had a different course. But yeah, I mean, it is a challenging course. I hear what you say, and I can see that perspective is, having it's who you're competing against, and when you're competing at the pro level, I don't think it's as not necessarily as big a deal, but like you're gonna always have those pros. I think it's a little bit different at the age group level with world championships in general, though. I don't know how aware you are of this, but when it comes to the roll downs and all that stuff,
Yeah.
it's kind of gotten to a point now where they just hand out slots. Clearly, it's not like that for the pros. Like y'all are putting in a ton of work, cannot take anything away from that. But the last few races I've gone to and other people I've talked to are pretty disappointed with Ironman because like it gets to a point where they're basically at the end of it and they're like, anyone want a slot? Anyone want a slot? So it'll be interesting to see how that rolls out.
Yeah. I mean, I think for the, I think, you know, the fact that it's been moved for the pros is a completely different conversation than for the
Yeah.
age groupers. I think like, I think it's a big mistake for the age groupers just because like, I mean, for some of the simplest reasons, such as there are a lot of couples who do triathlon together. And now they have to either figure out how to afford to go to two very expensive locations for a
Hmm.
prolonged period of time and find vacation days, like a significant amount of vacation days, or they have to decide who's going to which world championship in a given year.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think, you know, it's those kind of more, I would like to say, human aspects of the world championship that I think are going to be lost the most. And that's, I think, what
Yep.
makes me the most disappointed in the decision is that it just was not, you know, it doesn't take those things into consideration. So
Yeah, I think most of us are on point. It's felt a little bit like cash grabs. And the other thing, like I know a lot of people just make it more competitive, have less slots, and then you won't have the issue with too many people on the island. So it's interesting. We'll see how it all rolls out. I have to say I don't think it's going to roll out favorably for Ironman though,
yeah,
especially with the rising competition of PTO, Clash, Challenge, like all of the other races. I think the next few years are going to be interesting to see how they play out because Ironman's finally getting some competition.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, actually on that too, have you done any of the other races or do you want to do any of those?
I mean, I would love to do the PTO races. Just because again, like my whole goal is to race against the best, and the
Right.
PTO races you have, you know, the top 30 athletes in the world. But you know, I don't have the points yet.
Right. Yeah, I haven't done too much research on that. That's been kind of a rising topic for me that I've started looking into. Not for me personally because I'm not a pro yet. But it is an interesting subject that I'm planning on looking into a little bit more. Did you have anything else on, this upcoming season that I might have missed?
I don't think so.
No, cool. Then there were a few other things I definitely wanted to touch on. One of them going back to what you talked about with swimming and the wetsuit versus the speed skin, and maybe also some advice for other athletes on how to improve their swimming. Since you do, I know you're not a coach, and it sounds like you have a little bit more of the mentality of give me the workout, I'm going to go do it. But if you do have any advice, I'd love to get some of that as well for anyone that's going to be
Yeah,
listening that maybe they can benefit from.
for sure. So, you know, I think the wetsuit versus swim skin debate or whatever, if you will, is an interesting one. Like, there's no doubt that a wetsuit is faster. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's kind of why in the swimming world, you know, neoprene slash polyurethane suits are
Yeah.
banned. You're not allowed to have them because they provide such a performance benefit.
Right.
Um, However, like I think the big thing is that like even, you know, it just changes your body position in the water. It changes, like, you know, I spent, like, in swimming, as a swimmer, I never really like to spend more than 2 or 3 days out of the pool because it changes your feel for the water so
Mm-hmm.
dramatically. And a wetsuit just does that to an extreme because now you're putting
Right.
cloth on your forearm, whereas you used to didn't have it, and it changes your body position. And so, you know, I don't even, probably what, 6, 7 thousand hours in the pool by now at least. And so then to throw a wetsuit on, like, it just completely changes it. And so
Hmm.
I wouldn't say it messes up my form, but it just creates a different feel, and it's not quite as natural for me.
Gotcha.
Um, and you know, I think that's really the main. It's a unique case, and just someone like me who comes from such a swimming background where that's, you know, where I almost prefer the swim skin. Um, and then but yeah, and so in terms of like improving, I think the big thing that, like, you know, as I guess maybe surprisingly, I'm not in the triathlon scene that much, but from what I have seen, I kind of feel like what I mainly see people who aren't swimmers, what they do is they just try and up the yardage, and do more volume, more swimming. And I personally not being a coach.
Mhm.
Don't think that's the best use of time. I think really like people that aren't swimmers, the best way to get better is to work on your technique and to work on your form. And so, spend if you're spending 8 hours a week swimming or 6 hours a week swimming, like do 2 hours spread across all those swimming sessions where you're focusing solely on drills and technique and improving
Yep.
your form. Because at the end of the day, like, I don't know what's an analogy. If you're running on your heels and your toes never touch the ground, you're only going to be able to run so fast,
Mhm.
you know? And that's kind of like with swimming. If your technique is not right, no
Yep.
matter how much stronger you get and how much more endurance you have, you're only going to be able to go so fast because you're not grabbing enough water.
Yep.
So that's kind of my main suggestion is like get a coach who can like give you tips on your drill technique and improve your form itself more so than just pushing more yardage.
Yep. Well, so to piggyback off that, I am actually a coach as well. My coaching business is Good Vibes and Exercise. So I mean, I coach people from like, you know, total beginners doing their first try up to, people working towards like the higher end of their age groups. And I preach a lot of the similar things. I do preach just generally more time in the water. And tell me if I'm completely wrong on this or not, but I think it is better to have 30 minutes a day, 4 or 5 days a week than an hour twice a week.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of that is just that consistency. And like you said, getting the feel for the water. So, I mean, and unless someone is working towards that elite status, most people are not going to find themselves in the water for, 6 hours a week.
Yeah.
Most people can fit in anywhere from like 2 to 4 hours, maybe. And, in that time, I try to advertise like, hey, at least, especially in the beginning for new athletes, just, focus on getting a feel for the water. I have like a few specific drills that I do. And actually, I'd love to get your opinion on this. One of the sets that I give for especially new athletes, people work on form. Depending on their skill level, it's 4 by either 25, 50 going up and so on of, easy 25 DPS, which is distance per stroke, max effort, and then best stroke. So kind of combining the DPS and max effort. So it's those four. Each one is a 25 or a 50. And then basically doing sets of that. So if you have anything to improve that, I would love to know just to give for my athletes. But, I find that that's a good balance for people. That helps them work on the different aspects and really helps them break it down, not just to understand how they move through the water. Like, how your form and how your body move going at max effort is going to be very different than at distance per stroke. And then, trying to put those together is kind of where that balance is. So would love your feedback on that. If I'm, hopefully I'm not giving people bad advice, but I've got a good swimmer here. So please let me know.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so different than, like when I get in the water, I do like a minimum of 4,000 yards.
Right. Well, I
And so
usually target anywhere from like 3 to 5,000 for most of my swims, but especially for beginners, they
you don't
usually
do
are
that.
targeting anywhere from 800 or maybe even early beginners starting close to like 200 to 400 even, and then moving their way up closer to that 2 to 3,000 range.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think doing distance per stroke and really working on like stroke efficiency is super important. So
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, at least I got one of the four down, right? But yeah, no, I do think that's good advice. Focusing more on the technique, on the form, and then adding the speed in once you can actually get a feel for the water. And I'm trying to remember, there was one other thing I really wanted to touch on. While I'm trying to think of it, do you have anything else that in particular that you would like to share with people, whether it's stories about your training, anything that like the biking across America, any of those things that you'd like to share that you think have been, important to you and your story?
I mean, I just think the most important thing is like focusing on consistency of training and like being
Hmm.
easy, like, not being too hard on yourself when you have hard training, like a bad session or even a bad week. With medical school in particular, like, I mean, honestly, leading into Texas, like, was not like my best training block ever, in my opinion. Like, yes, my numbers were really good, but in terms of like the consistency of my training, the stress that I had outside of triathlon, like, a bunch of those things really were definitely not optimal. And I still put together a very good race. And so I think like the biggest thing is just like being consistent, like don't miss the workouts, do the best you can to like execute them as your coach writes them. But like, if you're a little bit low on your power or like your pace is not quite where you want, like it's okay.
Hmm.
Like don't freak out about one bad workout. Now, if you have like 2 weeks of bad workouts, then that's different
Need to have a conversation.
story. Yeah. But I think, I think just consistency is so important. And doing something like every day. So
Yeah. I mean, there you go. Everyone, you heard it. Consistency is key, and listen to your coach. Um, awesome. Well, I really appreciate you having you on here. And I would love to have you back on later in the season, or at the end of your season as well. If you have any, new PRs, if you have anything that comes up, please let me know. I would love to share it with our community here. So again, thanks for coming on, and wishing you the very best in your first season here as a pro.
thanks so much. It was great to talk to you.
If you enjoyed listening to Matthew's story, make sure to leave a like. And if you have any questions, comments, or just want to show your support, leave all that down in the comments section below. Thanks again for sticking around. Good luck, Matthew, on your pro career. And for everyone else, happy training.